The Clockwork Sparrow and the Garden That Forgot How to Grow. In a kingdom where the mountains wore snowy caps like grandfathers and the rivers sang on their way to the sea, there was a walled garden that had once been the most beautiful place on earth. Roses climbed silver trellises, peach trees dripped with golden fruit, and every night 1,000 nightingales filled the air with music. But that was long ago. Now the garden was silent and gray. The roses had turned to thorns, the peach trees stood bare, and the nightingales had flown away forever. People said the garden had forgotten how to grow because its heart had grown too heavy. At the very center of this forgotten garden stood a little brass bird on a marble pedestal. He was no bigger than your hand, made of polished gears and tiny ruby eyes. His name was Ticken, and he was a clockwork sparrow. Long ago, a lonely princess had wound him up every morning so he could sing for her. But the princess had grown up and left, and no one had wound Ticken for 100 years. His keyhole was rusty, his wings stiff, and his voice completely silent. One spring morning, a small girl named Mira, who was brave and curious and only 7 summers old, climbed the crumbling garden wall with a basket of bread and wild strawberry jam. She'd heard stories of the sleeping garden and wanted to see it for herself. When she stepped through the broken gate, everything was quiet, except for the wind moving sadly through the dry leaves. Mira walked and walked until she came to the heart of the garden and saw Ticken standing alone on his pedestal. "Hello, little bird," she whispered. Ticken did not move. His ruby eyes stared straight ahead. Mira noticed the tiny keyhole shaped like a heart on his side. She reached into her pocket and, by the strangest luck, pulled out a small brass key that her grandfather had given her years ago. She said, "I was told to keep this until I found something that needed to sing again." She slipped the key into the rusty hole. It fit perfectly. Creak, creak, click. Mira turned the key once, twice, 7 times. Suddenly, Ticken's wings twitched. His head turned with a soft whir. A tiny puff of dust flew out of his beak, and then came the sweetest sound Mira had ever heard. A single clear note, like a bell made of sunlight. Ticken opened his ruby eyes wide. Who wound me?" he asked in a voice like silver coins falling into a wishing well. "I did," said Mira. "I'm Mira. Why is the garden so sad?" Ticken looked around and his brass feathers drooped. "Because I stopped singing. When the princess left, no one wound me anymore. My song was the garden's heartbeat. Without it, everything forgot how to grow." Mira thought for a moment. "Then we will make you sing again. But I can only visit on Saturdays. Who will wind you the other days?" Ticken's gears clicked sadly. "No one. And one winding lasts only 7 days. On the 8th day, I will stop again, and the garden will sleep forever." Mira looked at the dry earth, the thorn roses, the bare trees. She could not bear for that to happen. "Then we must find 6 more people to wind you, 1 for every day of the week. Will you help me?" Ticken's eyes brightened. "I will try, but the garden gate is locked with 7 locks, and each lock will open only for someone who brings what the garden has forgotten." And so the search began. On the first Saturday, Mira wound Ticken and he sang 1 perfect day of music. Tiny green buds appeared on 1 peach tree. The next Saturday, Mira returned with the baker's son, Luca, who carried a basket of warm bread. "The garden has forgotten kindness," said Ticken. Luca broke his bread and scattered crumbs for the ants and beetles. The first lock clicked open, and roses on 1 bush turned soft pink again. The following week, Mira brought old widow Amalia, who had no family. She carried a jar of tears she had saved from lonely nights. "The garden has forgotten comfort," Ticken said. Amalia poured her tears gently onto the dry soil. the second lock opened, and a nightingale returned and sang one shy note before flying away again. Week after week, Mira found someone new. Thomas, the shepherd boy, who played a flute from a reed. He played until the grass turned green under his feet. The garden has forgotten joy. Third lock open. Little Sunita, who was blind and walked with a white cane, touched every tree and whispered their names until they remembered they were alive. The garden has forgotten being seen. Fourth lock. Grumpy old soldier Marco, who had lost his laughter in the war. He told the thorniest rosebush the silliest joke he knew about a chicken who joined the army. The rosebush laughed so hard its thorns fell off and became petals. The garden has forgotten laughter. Fifth lock. Shy poet Layla, who was afraid to read her poems aloud. She stood on the pedestal and read her verses to the wind. The wind carried them to every corner of the garden, and flowers lifted their heads to listen. The garden has forgotten stories. Sixth lock. On the seventh Saturday, Mira came alone. Only one lock remained. She said, "I've looked everywhere. There is no one left." Ticken looked at her gently. "Little Mira, the garden has forgotten one last thing. It has forgotten forgiveness. Who still needs to forgive?" Mira's eyes filled with tears. "Me," she whispered. "When my mother got sick and went away to the city hospital, I was angry. I thought she left me on purpose. I stopped writing letters. I stopped believing she would come back." She put her arms around the cold brass bird. "I forgive her," Mira said, "and I forgive myself for being angry." The seventh lock clicked open by itself. All 7 locks fell from the gate with a happy chime. Sunlight poured in like warm honey. Ticken's wings spread wide. He flew in a shining circle above the garden and began to sing. Not just one day's song, but the song of every missing day for 100 years. The peach trees burst into blossom so suddenly that pink petals rained like snow. Roses opened in every color. Nightingales returned in a cloud of music. Vines raced up the walls and covered them in green. The whole garden woke up laughing and stretching and growing taller than ever before. And in the middle of it all flew Ticken, the Clockwork Sparrow, singing louder and clearer than any real bird ever could. From that day on, every child in the kingdom was invited to the garden on their birthday to wind Ticken once. No one ever had to do it alone again. The garden stayed awake and blooming for hundreds and hundreds of years. Mira grew up, of course. Her mother came home healthy, and every Saturday, no matter how old she became, Mira returned to wind Ticken first, because she had been the one brave enough to start it all. And on quiet evenings, when the stars came out, you could still hear a tiny brass bird singing the happiest song in the world, reminding everyone who listened, no heart, garden, person, or clockwork sparrow was ever meant to beat alone. When we help each other keep going, the whole world grows beautiful again. And they all lived blooming ever after. Moral: to whisper as you tuck your child in. The most important key we ever carry is the key that helps someone else start again, even when it's hard, even when it takes a long time. That key opens every locked garden, including the ones inside us. Sleep tight, little explorer. The garden is growing in your dreams tonight.